'cause I see the born of no return. Sister, hey now, can't you see we're rushing for the end? I see the point of no return. Now see the point of no return. It's just here.
Well, good evening. It's Monday again, May 19th, 2014. My name is Gary Hendershot. I'm broadcasting live at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern U.S. time from my secret underground bunker just moments south of Washington, D.C. And I'm happy to see so many in the chat room tonight. By the way, I am sometimes remiss in doing something I always remember to admonish others to do when I'm producing programming for them. And, of course, I'm guilty of not doing it for myself. So just a little bit of blatant self-promotion. On the Internet, I am pretty well known as Smart Scarecrow. And I do have a website at smartscarecrow.com. The website is, not very well maintained right now because at the present I'm very busy and I'm having a difficult time maintaining it. But, I do the best I can. There is a link to all of the programming that I produce on the website, along with links to all the articles that I base these news commentaries on. If you're interested in being notified when I'm going to do a broadcast, now typically I do a broadcast every Monday evening right here on Wide Awake News, Monday evening at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern U.S. time. You can usually find me for a 1-hour diatribe on the news items of the week that really pissed me off. But if you would like to stay up to date on when I'm going to do a live broadcast, best way to handle it is to follow Smart Scarecrow on Twitter. If you follow Smart Scarecrow on Twitter, you will be notified usually 2-3 times during the day that I'm about to do a live broadcast. Okay, I think that's enough blatant self-promotion for me tonight. Now, on other issues, every time I do one of these broadcasts, I got to get a little bit of giggles. You cannot take a position, you cannot express an opinion without pissing somebody off. It's just, human nature. It's just the nature of things. And if you've exposed yourself to that kind of criticism for any period of time, after a while you get a pretty thick skin and it just doesn't bother you anymore. So I don't worry about it a whole heck of a lot. And usually when I piss somebody off, it's the ADL calling me an anti-Semite or the La Raza telling me that I'm down on brown people, or usually the hate mail I get is pretty predictable. But, last week, I did what I thought was a really optimistic article about a new battery technology that I found very intriguing. I thought it was a pretty interesting article. But, as part of my diatribe, I kind of picked on the current generation of batteries that are used in electric automobiles. I'm not a big fan of them. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know that eventually electric cars will probably be predominant in the world market. I mean, I'm not living under a rock. I can smell the coffee brewing. I know what's coming. The day of the internal combustion gasoline-powered car may even come to a close during my lifetime. I may live to see that. I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But certainly in my children's day and my grandchildren's day, they'll just be shaking their heads trying to figure out, how we could have driven gasoline-powered automobiles for 100 years and, how we could have put up with that. The electric cars will eventually take over. I'm not a big fan of the lithium-ion type batteries that are currently being used in these cars. Obviously, they have their advantages. They store a lot of energy for a given size and weight. And to make electric automobiles practical, that's a big plus. And if the lithium-ion battery technology that is currently our state-of-the-art is what makes those electric cars saleable, practical enough that people are willing to go down and spend money on them and move those cars into the forefront, I say more power to them. I'm not convinced that they're appropriate yet. I kind of like this new battery technology because the chemistry involved with it appeared to be a little bit more stable, yet it still had the same energy density for the size and weight of battery. You could store as much energy, and the charge-discharge rates on them seem to be better. Frankly, if this new battery technology pans out, if it proves out over time, I think it would be great if they replaced the lithium-ion battery. Well, needless to say, I was a little surprised that apparently I offended electric car enthusiasts. So all you electric car enthusiasts out there, please accept my apology. I wasn't taking shots at you. From my point of view, go for it, guys. Do the best you can. Keep building those darn things, because every time we build one, we figure out some new wrinkle, some new way to make it a little bit better, a little bit faster, a little more spirited, a little bit more desirable. And I have no doubt but that at some point in the very near future, I will probably be driving an electric car, whether I like it or not. Got a little bit more car news later on in the broadcast, but right now I want to move on to a topic of some contention. And here again, I expect to get a lot of hate mail on this one. Oh, Gary, you're a racist. You just don't like them brown people. I can hear, okay, come on, you can take your shots. But we are going to talk a little bit about what many keep referring to as immigration reform. Now, from my point of view, this has nothing to do with immigration reform. This has to do with not enforcing laws that are currently on the books. It boils down to giving amnesty to criminals that have breached our borders, flaunting our laws. And it's a failure of the government to enforce the laws that are on the books. Now, this is one of the most serious bones I got to pick with these guys who keep telling me that they are my government and that I voted them in, so I should just, nod my head and say, yeah, everything is cool. Even when these guys pass laws that most Americans find agreeable, they selectively enforce them in such a way that, it pads their nest for either getting votes or getting political contributions or whatever. So, they manipulate the laws in such a, well, we passed that law you want, Mr. Citizen, but we ain't going to enforce it because if we do, we won't get elected. This has been going on for years. Now, long time ago, we had a president in office who a lot of conservatives really, really liked, and a lot of them, still hold this guy up as, the poster child for the proper actions of a conservative president. This old actor, a guy by the name of Reagan, the Ronald Ray gun. That was Nixon's secret weapon, was the Ronald Ray gun. But in any case, Reagan somehow got bamboozled into giving blanket amnesty to a whole bunch of people who were here in our country illegally. Just wrote it off, wrote them off the book, said, okay, we give up. You guys are here. You've been here for a long time. A lot of you have been here long enough. You got small businesses. You got families that have been born here. You got homes. You got cars. You got responsibilities. All right, we give up. You're Americans. But the deal is we're going to give you guys amnesty this time around, but that's going to be it. After that, we're going to close the border. You see how that worked out for us. So we gave blanket amnesty back during Reagan's administration to about 8 million. That's what we were told. Some say it might have been twice that, and with all the follow-ons that came in after them, they bring in cousins and nieces and nephews and whatever. Some say might have been as many as 25 million came across the border during that amnesty. Well, now they want to do it again. They're talking about immigration reform. And what this really means is they're legalizing an invasion from the South. Okay? And these are not the Southerners who will rise again. These are from the way south. Here's an article out of The Hill. Apparently it's all up to Speaker John Boehner. Republican and Democratic advocates see one final long-shot chance to pass immigration reform. God, I hate it when they say that way. Immigration has nothing to do with immigration reform. Rests with a speaker stuck between his party's resistance and his search for a career-defining legacy. How many of these immigrants coming in do you really think will vote conservative Republican? Huh? I ask you. So what's in it for Republicans? Do they really think that they're going to have a constituency? Do any true conservatives think they will have a constituency with these immigrants, invaders, immigrants, invaders? Boehner clearly wants to overhaul the immigration system, but to revive the issue, he will have to untangle knots he tied during the past year. Yeah, basically, he's been on the right side of this argument. He's been saying, wait a minute, this ain't kosher. Basically, what it boils down to is the Senate wants a sweeping reform. They want just blanket amnesty. The Senate has decided to just, roll over and play dead, and apparently give somewhere around 30 million. Some say only 16. Others say as many as 50. When numbers get that many zeros on the end of them, they start to boggle the mind of a simple country boy with straw for brains. I'm wondering, where is the water going to come from? Where is the food going to come from? Where are the roads going to come from? Where is the infrastructure? Not to mention the jobs. Where are these things going to come from to support such a rapid increase in U.S. population? Where is it going to come from? What is the payoff? What is the benefit to you and me? Those of us who were born here, those of us who are entitled to be here, what is the payback to us for letting all these people flagrantly violate our laws? But Boehner is looking for a legacy. So I guess invasion reform will have to be his legacy. Now, another guy, this pictured over my shoulder for those of you watching the video feed on this, Representative Luis Gutierrez, he's a Democrat from Illinois, suggested that until Congress passes sweeping amnesty legislation, every institution in America should find ways to ignore or work around federal immigration laws. This is a member of the House This is a member of the House of Representatives who's saying, hey, until they get their act together and just make all these people legal, figure out some way to get around the law. We got a law on the books right now. Says we're supposed to catch these guys and send them back home. Just ignore it. Okay. You see what I mean about selective enforcement. There is immigration law on the books today that is not being enforced. So you pass immigration reform. Okay? What makes you think that will be enforced any more than what's on the books right now? You got guys like this in the Congress that, look, if I don't like a law, I'm just going to ignore it. Y'all just, find some way to work around that law. That law is inconvenient, so we'll just work around that. Yeah, I can't help it. Man, that is bullshit. That breaks the bullshitometer. Meanwhile, are you familiar with something called the DREAM Act? Okay. Oh, all you poor youngins, you came across the border. Yeah, mommy and daddy snuck you across the border, but, we're not going to hold that against you. Mommy and daddy are criminals. If we catch them, we're going to line them up against the wall and shoot them. But you youngsters, we're going to give you a clear-cut path to citizenship. Maybe some service in the military, get you to go over and kill those brown people that we don't like. And, we're going to make you U.S. citizens. We're going to make sure you get, a high school diploma and all. We're going to take care of you. With border authorities in South Texas overwhelmed by a surge of young illegal immigrants traveling by themselves. Go north, young man. Find your opportunities. The Department of Homeland Security declared a crisis this week and moved to set up an emergency shelter for the youths at an Air Force base. And said they're coming over the border faster than we can integrate them into our already troubled economy. And with this DREAM Act, they just assume, hey, if I can make it across the border, they're going to take care of me. Everything's going to be cool. After seeing children packed in a Border Patrol station in McAllen, Texas during a visit last Sunday, Homeland Security Secretary Jay Johnson on Monday declared a level 4 condition of readiness in the Rio Grande Valley. The alert was an official recognition that federal agencies overseeing borders, immigration enforcement, and child welfare had been outstripped by a sudden increase in unaccompanied minors in recent weeks. So yeah, you just keep dreaming on, you youngsters from the South. And I tell you, the real shame of this is the ones that are getting across the border and coming here to the U.S. in many cases are they're gangs, they're criminals, and the slime of their society who are looking to get across the border to feed off of the largesse of American society. But most of what's coming across the border are the best and brightest that these countries to the south have to offer. So assuming we do find a way to integrate them within American society, the impact on the nations that they are leaving, they are losing some of their best, some of the ones who really should be staying home, sorting out the problems in their own nations. Now, believe me, we got enough of our own problems here. We don't need to be importing problems from other nations in the world. And those bright youngsters that have the wherewithal the balls, the gumption to go it on their own, to crash a border, to come here with nothing but what Obama would call a dream. In one way, you really have to admire them. In another way, you kind of have to shake your head and be sad at the loss of high-quality manpower that our neighbors to the south are losing. Houston immigration attorney Raed Gonzalez claims the controversy surrounding the Obama's administration's release of tens of thousands of criminal illegal aliens is just a publicity stunt. No, it's not. They got more of them than they can find room in the jails for. I'm hearing the music in the background, so you're going to have to excuse me while I slide out of here and let the studio sell a few products to keep the lights burning. Be right back after these important commercial announcements. All righty, and we're back from our first break of the evening. So I spent almost first half of the program, flapping my jaws about, immigration reform, invasion reform. So, I expect to get a whole bunch of hate mail from La Raza and everybody saying, you're just a racist, you don't like brown people or whatever. Bring it on, I can take it. But, the fact of the matter is there are laws on the books to handle this situation that are not being enforced. So they pass a new law, like Reagan did. What makes you think they'll enforce the new law? We'll be right back in this same situation a generation from now. I know I'm going to piss off another constituency out there. Okay, tonight's my night to try. I got 4 or 5 different constituencies I'm going to try to piss off. If you're Jewish, I promise I'll piss you off towards the end of the show. If you're a car nut, I've got a special item I'm going to bring up a little bit later in the show just to piss you off. So, get ready. Get your pen and paper ready. I'm going to see how many people I can piss off tonight. But, there are a lot of freedom lovers out there. People who look at the current government and they say, this is just crazy. We need a constitutional convention to sort all this problem out. And I'm sitting there saying, what? You can't get them to follow the current Constitution. So you call a constitutional convention. Okay, who are going to be the delegates? Chances are the same SOBs that are in charge. Now, you know what they're going to do? They're going to give themselves blanket amnesty for ignoring the last Constitution. Then they're going to incorporate in all the naughty, dirty deeds that they've been doing for the last 100 years. They're going, oh yeah, that's perfectly legal. That's normal course of business. Yeah, that's the way a country is run. A constitutional convention, for crying out loud, people, wake up and smell the coffee. Let's see if maybe we could go for just one generation where the government actually abides by the limits in the Constitution we have now before we start worrying about trying to write a new one. The one we got now is flawed. No question about it, okay? It is not a perfect document. If you understand the history of how it was compromises. A lot of compromises were made in the writing of the Constitution. You had a lot of diverse interests that had to be accommodated. And I will grant you that, any political scholar can pick the Constitution of the United States apart and find some real serious flaws, some items that, by today's standards we might find a little embarrassing. But at its core, it's a good, solid document. And if we could get the government to abide by the Constitution, I think in the long run we would have a better nation. Now, we've been very concerned about all the stuff that's going on Central Europe, particularly Ukraine, for quite a while now. You keep looking at that. You say, oh boy, this is this is a hot spot. This could go off at any moment. America, by its very nature, because of our history, is much more closely tied to Europe than it is to Asia. So it's natural for us to have a Eurocentric view of the world. Are you aware of the troubles that are starting to come up in Asia? China is out there kind of, flexing its muscles a little bit. China's, starting to get a full head of steam on. And, I guess in a way you can't blame them. I mean, they are kind of the big bully on the block in that part of the world. But China, in some respects, is, kind of pushing the line a little bit. Now, for those of you watching the video presentation, I've got a map of what's known as the South China Seas on the screen, and there's a red line there, and that is the line that China claims as its territorial waters. China claims territorial waters that go all the way south off the coast of Vietnam and the Philippines. So they are claiming a rather ridiculous chunk of ocean as their territorial waters. Well, you say, well, why? Why would they want to do that? Some of that ocean is obviously Vietnam's. Some of that water is definitely Philippines. Why would China want to press this issue? Well, as always, there is a good reason, and it has to do with oil. Oil has been discovered in the South China Sea, and of course, being a up-and-coming industrial powerhouse, China needs that oil. Now, China for a long time has benefited from cheap labor costs. We keep thinking, our stuff's made in China because of the cheap labor. Well, our stuff's made in China. Guess where the Chinese stuff is made? It's made in Vietnam and Philippines and Malaysia, where they can get labor even cheaper than in China. Well, mainly because of this argument over territorial waters, the nations of Vietnam and the Philippines and Malaysia are starting to get a little pissed off with China, because China's been throwing its weight around, and they're getting to be downright annoying to a lot of those nations who historically would have been buddies with China. I mean, they have good trading relations with China. China is probably their biggest customer for goods and services. So to a large degree, getting into a pissing contest, if you're Vietnam or Malaysia and you get into a pissing contest with China, kind of cutting your nose off to spite your face. But it's gotten serious enough at this point that, particularly in the case of Vietnam, Vietnam's been getting kind of rowdy and has actually, damaged a couple of Chinese-owned factories and held some Chinese nationals hostage. I think all the Chinese managed to get out at this point. But the bottom line is, as we focus so much of our attentions on Ukraine and the issues there, you do need to keep in the back of your mind that there are tensions starting to brew in Asia. And as we roll up to World War III, we may indeed have all continents involved to the same degree in fussing and fighting. It just, it boggles the mind that cooler heads cannot prevail. But right now, there are troops, Chinese troops, massing on its border with Vietnam. So one more item you need to be aware of be paying attention to. Chances are your, corporate-sponsored news here in the United States and Europe may give you a little dribs and drabs of information about what's going on in Ukraine or not, but it's very doubtful that you'll be getting the real skinny on what's going down in Asia. And right now, it's looking kind of tense. China ships evacuate almost 2,000 from Vietnam. Large number of Chinese troops seen headed for China-Vietnam border. Yeah, it's just another day in paradise. I'm hearing the music in the background again, so if you'll excuse me for just a moment, I'll bow out of here and let the studio do some more blatant promotional items, and I'll be back in just a moment. All righty, we're back from that blatantly commercial break there. Gotta cut the music a little quicker because I got a lot to cover here, and I've only got 10, 12 minutes. I'm never going to get through all this stuff. I've still got to remember to insult the Jews and insult the car buffs. I can't forget. I got to make sure I get hate mail from all segments out there. We talked a little bit about the troubles that are starting to become apparent in Asia, but the issues in the Ukraine have not gone away yet. Here's an article from Reuters. Says the White House said on Monday it has seen no indication of any movement of Russian troops away from the Russian border with Ukraine, despite a Kremlin statement that the troops had been ordered back to their bases. And in a similar note, the U.S. has announced the deployment of a boat affectionately known as the Love Boat into the Baltic, the U.S. missile cruiser Vela Gulf. So as we're chiding the Russians for keeping assets deployed near their border with Ukraine, we're moving Aegis missile carriers into position. So the beat goes on. Remember that Sonny and Cher tune? You are watching in real time the roll-up to World War III. Okay? It's coming. These people are crazy. If they can't have it all, they will blow it up. They got a scorched earth policy. If you think asking these people nicely to back off and give you your world back is going to work, you had best think again. Even if you held a gun to their head and said, damn it, you guys that are running this world need to back off and let us live in peace, they would burn it to the ground before they'd let you have it. What's important to most Americans? We got an immigration problem, an invasion problem. We got Europe looking like it may erupt into, yet another shooting war. We got stuff going on in Asia that's looking kind of scary. China's over there flexing its muscle, saying, we just want a little piece of this ocean, a little piece of that ocean. China's looking like, they've taken a lesson from the U.S. and they are becoming the bully of Southeast Asia. So we got all these troubles to consider. What is on the minds of most Americans? Well, according to a Gallup poll, now for those of you who've been watching this for a while, you probably already know my opinion of polls. What's my opinion of a poll? Well, yeah. For those who are watching the video feed, they just saw a little snapshot of the bullshitometer. But you got to look at polls. You got to consider the source. This report out of Washington, D.C., 20% of Americans name unemployment or jobs as the most important problem facing the nation. 20%. Is that all? I would have thought it would have been more like 80%. Democrats are most likely to name jobs or unemployment as the country's most important problems, whereas Republicans' top response is the economy in more generality. Democrats and Republicans and independents are about equally likely to cite dissatisfaction with government. Dissatisfaction with government. The federal budget deficit is a much larger concern among Republicans at 16% than among independents, 7%, and Democrats at 3%. Democrats are much more likely to mention the environment as the top problem than are independents and or Republicans. Democrats are more likely than Republicans to list several social issues, such as race relations, the gap between rich and poor, and education. At least 6% of Democrats cite these issues, compared with 1% or fewer Republicans. On the other hand, Republicans are more likely than Democrats to list moral and ethical decline and the economy in general as the most important problems. So that's what's on the mind of most Americans. What's on the mind of our politicians? Well, let's see here. Courting powerful Jewish donors for the second time in 2 months, New Jersey Governor Christie called Sunday for a more aggressive foreign policy. Yeah, we're not killing enough brown people in the world. We got to go kill some more. The rest of the world watches in desperation and hope that America will realize and act upon once again its indispensable place in the world. Christie, a prospective Republican presidential contender, said in a keynote address Sunday at the Champions of Jewish Values International Awards Gala in New York, "We must lead." Mr. Christie, you got a big pile of poop in your own backyard. Before you start worrying about shoveling poop in other people's backyards, clean your own house first. And no, that was not the article that was intended to inflame any Jewish folks in my audience. We'll get to that one, I hope, before I run out of time here. Let's see here. Let's have another picture of Governor Christie with his advisors. Yeah, yeah. For those of you on the radio and didn't get the sight gag, I just put up a picture of Jabba the Hutt. I think most people. Anyway, on to other items. There's no big secret that Obama, and in particular this administration, and even Republican administrations of the past, they do it a little bit more with more subtlety, but certainly this Obama administration has been hell-bent on getting guns out of the hands of American citizens. The idea of, it's like I say, why bother with a new constitutional convention if you can't get them to follow the Constitution we got? They have been hell-bent on removing from private ownership firearms here in the United States. Now, the frontal assault with just, making guns illegal, they've pretty much figured that isn't going to work. So at this point, there was only one company in the United States that was producing lead, and of course, lead is a constituent of bullets. They've pretty much, now that company's gone, they've pretty much run the lead industry out of business here in the United States. So now we have to import most of our bullets. But there's been a lot of back channel ways they've been trying to get at guns. Well, they figured out a new way. Gun retailers say the Obama administration is trying to put them out of business with regulations and investigations that bypass Congress and choke off their lines of credit, freeze their assets, and prohibit online sales. Since 2011, regulators have increased scrutiny on banks' customers. The Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation in 2011 urged banks to better manage the risks of their merchant customers who employ payment processors. Basically, if you want to buy a firearm on a credit card, it has to go through a bank processing center. They're cutting the gun dealers off at the knees to where they cannot process payments online or even over the counter if you choose to walk in with a credit card. Now, of course, Joey Bonanno, who buys his .38 revolver from Guido in a back alley in Baltimore, if you think he pays with a credit card, no. That is a cash transaction. So, the idea that this is going to have any effect on criminal ownership of firearms, no, not a chance. No-knock raid in Texas that got officer killed, found no drugs. Yeah. This is kind of sad, but, the cops have been doing this no-knock forced entry, 2 o'clock in the morning. They break down your door, and a whole bunch of guys in Darth Vader outfits come storming through your door. Now, some folks take exception to that, and they figure anybody comes, breaking down their door, wandering into their home at 2 o'clock in the morning, is going to be met with firepower. And in Killeen, Texas, that happened. Officer Chuck Dinwiddie and Otis Denton were shot by a resident on Friday as they broke into the home of the man to serve a warrant searching for drugs. Okay, they didn't knock on the door and say, "Hey, cops, we got a warrant to search." No, they just busted his door down. This guy got into a panic. He had no idea who was coming through his door. He fired at him. Killed one, seriously wounded another. And this guy is probably going to face prosecution. Now, okay, I'll let you make up your own damn mind on that one. I think you know where okay, I'm going to have to skip that article because I got to pick on the car guys out there. Okay, this is the one that's going to get all the car guys sending me nasty hate mail. This is out of Reuters again. Cars could be driving themselves down the world's streets far sooner than expected, thanks to a change in a global treaty backed by European countries. Yeah, remember that pilot program where that Google car was navigating itself? Well, the Europeans say they are ready to implement this thing. They are ready to have cars that drive themselves. Now, I'll tell you, I just got a new car for the wife. Got her a Subaru Outback. And this car is pretty well equipped by, it's got, let's put it this way, it's got a lot of new gadgets on it that weren't available back when I bought my last car a decade ago. And this thing's got some kind of little thing they call eyesight in it, where if you wander a little bit, if you change lanes without doing your turn indicator thing, this thing starts complaining at you. It acts like a nanny, it starts bleeping at you saying, "You're out of your lane, you're out of your lane." And the wife was going to pull into her parking place at work, the first day she had the car. And apparently she came up on the bushes at the edge of her parking space a little too quick. Car didn't like it and automatically put on the brakes for her. Now, I understand that's what killed that reporter Hastings, was these cars that get to do all this stuff for themselves. So, verdict is still out on this stuff. I'm still looking for the button on the Subaru that turns all that stuff off. I'm hoping to find it. All right, now, before we get out of here, I got to take my shot at the Jews, okay? Russia Today does this thing called Juice News. It's hilarious. I catch it every chance I can get. Russia Today is being called anti-Semitic for publishing this thing. If you get a chance to watch it, they do publish it on YouTube. It is hilarious. And if you really think it's anti-Semitic, get a life, please. Okay, that's it. I'm out of here. I hear the music. I gotta shut up and get out of here. Y'all have a good evening. Thanks for listening. Good night, all.
What will what will you do? What will you do? What will you do? Oh, I'm calling out to you. Won't you turn around? Oh, I'm calling out to you. Won't you turn around?